I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Chase, thrilled to have you on here. I've known you since you were a little kid, watched you excel as a student, as an athlete, high school level and collegiately. You've coached high school, you coached college, and you're currently at Cleveland Heights High School, Metropolitan City, Cleveland, Ohio. I wanted you to tell a little bit about Chase. First of all, thanks for coming on. You got a lot of diversity of all the places you've been. Talk about where your career started, the different places you've been in your teaching career.
Well, first I want to start with I don't know if you remember this, but you was one of my coaches, and we won the Big Stick championship at Rosecrans. I forget the other coach's name, but yeah, you was one of my coaches back then.
And so they blame me, Chase, for any mistakes you made. It's all my fault.
Yep. I'll put the blame on you, I guess.
Most people do.
But no, I mean, I like you said, we've known each other a long time. I started off at Maysville back in '99. I was there for 2 years. Then I left there, went to Utica, taught elementary school there, and then Jason Lee got a hold of me and told me that Malin Luke needed a grad assistant at Clarion University. So, of course, I got a hold of Malin right away, and I said, "You owe me this job." It was late in the summer. I said, "You owe me this job." And he said, "Why do I owe you this job?" And he remembered me. And I said, "Well, you recruited me to Defiance College. And when I decided to go there, you left." I said, in our program, I said, you go 8-2, 9-1, 9-1. I show up, you leave. We go 6-4, 3-7, 2-8, 1-9. I said, so you owe me this job. So I had a lot of hoops to jump through to get there. And then was the head running backs coach. And then I realized I only needed 2 classes. So I decided to come back home and finish it up online. And then I thought I was done teaching. So I drove truck for Kokona's Furniture. And then I said I got to get back into teaching. So I got a job at Mount Gilead. And then
what and you've taught special ed the entire time? Yeah.
Well, the Maysville thing, that was kind of a weird situation because it wasn't, those kids were red flagged. So I'm not sure if all those kids were on IEPs or not, but I mean, obviously we're out there in that trailer.
So I remember that.
Yeah, the trailer. And I remember it was pretty much, don't let the kids in the building, keep them out there with you. Don't let them in the school. So they were considered at risk. So I went to Mount Gilead, then I left and went to Bern Union. And at that point in time, it was all about coaching and the right fit for coaching. And then I saw where Cleveland Heights had an opening, and I realized I needed to be in a bigger city. So I applied for a coaching position at Cleveland Heights, and Jeff Rotsky, the head coach there at the time, got a hold of me right away. And he got things moving really, really fast for me. So I went and did my meeting, interviewed, had to do a couple things online to make sure I'm highly qualified in other teaching areas. And then I spent my first 5 years in a lock unit called Belfair.
What is the lock unit for the people out there? Explain what that is.
So there was a campus that's located inside the Cleveland Heights School District, and it services adults. But what we specialized in there was kids that were ED that came from Warrensville, Shaker Heights, East Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, Bedford Heights. They would all get shipped to this one building. and then they would go home at the end of the day. Well, I taught across from that big building in a lock unit where kids would come anywhere from California to New York. And it was a 30, 60, 90-day residential treatment facility. So you had some kids that were there because of they were waiting to get sentenced and get relocated to a juvenile detention center, or it was kids coming out of a juvenile detention center waiting to be placed with a foster family. It was drug trafficking, sex trafficking. We've had some girls that were involved in the sex ring. And it was just a place to give them help. And those kids lived there. They had a home there.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I taught in that building for 5 years, and it's the lock unit because every door is locked. When you open up a door, the door locks behind it. The only way you can get outside is by pulling the fire or sneaking out. So it was highly that was rough because we had to do restraints. We had to be TCI trained. That was a rough one. But then I got moved to they closed up. So then I did online teaching for 2 years there at Cleveland Heights at the Deb Delisle Center. And then I went on to do middle school at Roxborough Middle School. And I just told my supervisor, I said, you got the wrong person for this job. I said, I need to be at the high school. So the following year they moved to the high school, and then I was in the ED unit there. And so I've been at the Heights High ever since. And right now this year I'm currently teaching Algebra 1. I got 1, 2, 4 co-taught classes and 1 pull-out class.
So, I mean, what a diverse experience you have, from small town USA to middle school to small town outside Columbus to big, a locked unit, right? From kids from all over. And then online teaching, which that's a whole different other experience and challenge. And then now Cleveland Heights High School, which is in a metropolitan city, a big city. So, man, describe, Chase, why'd you get into education? Why did you want to be a teacher?
Well, it's funny you say that because I tell people this, so they say there's no way. When I was in the third grade, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and my ultimate goal was to be a teacher and be a head football coach. And I got talking with my father, and he said, well, the only way you can be a head football coach is you have to play college football. So I knew that was one route I was going to have to go with. And he gave me examples of guys that he knew that were head football coaches. And he said, it doesn't mean you have to be a player, a starter, but, you have to be on the team. And that kind of gives you a leg up. And then I always knew I loved going to school with the St. Nicholas. And, we had nuns there. And we had other teachers as well. But I just knew deep down that was probably my calling. And it had nothing to do. I didn't know about any of the perks. I didn't know, how many days a year you teach. I just knew I wanted to be in front of kids and, help them reach their goals. So both of them kind of went hand in hand. I knew I was going to play football. That was my passion. And I knew I wanted to help others out. So.
And again, education is a calling. It's a servanthood. It's serving other people. Absolutely. And so I'm going to share you a couple stats. So currently with the national crisis of teacher shortage in the United States, there are 75,000 current vacant positions across the country, and there's 270,000 positions that are filled under qualified. So, whether it's they're qualified to teach it, or it's a sub license, or it's just a body in there. Okay. 61% of teachers in December this past year reported their burnout. Okay. So teachers have to wear a lot of hats. So I'm gonna give you a couple reasons. The number one reason teachers leave is low pay. And they say that there's not enough money that's required for a professional license that you have to renew every 4 or 5 years. And if I'm gonna have a professional license, then I should be treated like a doctor, an attorney, a pharmacist. And then there's the other side that, you only work 175, 180 days a year, blah, blah, blah. What's your first initial reaction to that data that people are leaving for low pay?
Well, it doesn't shock me. Then again, here at Cleveland Heights, I mean, Cleveland Heights is one of the highest paying districts in the state, and I really don't, and I don't really complain too much about the pay, even though my friends up here say, well, you need to get paid more. And it's not about the pay. It's about what we deal with every day. I know in my situation, it's kind of like being the front line of a war, and you just hope, you make it through the day. Because things can get, violent up here, at Heights, as opposed to other school districts I've been in. There's not much danger.
So, well, that's the second reason people are leaving education is due to an increase of lack of disrespect by students and parents, and the lack of support from districts. Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
And that's a double-edged sword, because when they use the word lack of support, from on the other side of that, on the dark side, as an administrator, superintendent, where I'm at, there's also some things you can and can't do as well, right? So it does play into, I think people are burn out with the lack of. I do think there's an increase of disrespect and it's not all the students' fault.
Right. You know what? I'll tell you this. I mean, there's schools on the other side of the big pond where teachers are put on a pedestal, and teachers are well respected, and they're paid accordingly. And you can only be a teacher. If you say you want to be a teacher, you can't just be one. There's other countries where they're going to peg you as a youngster and say, you're going into this field to be a teacher, and you're put on that pedestal. Where over here, I mean, let's face it, we're paying, millions of dollars to actors, actresses, and athletes. Somebody can hit a ball out of the ballpark, or, rush for 1,500 yards in the season, and they can't spell cat if you spot them the C and the T. So where's the where's our emphasis at here in the United States, as far as where do we place teachers on that scale? And teachers are way down, and a lot of that has to do with I just flat out say it, it's the upbringing. A lot of it is that kids aren't taught to be respectful, and then no one's held accountable. I mean, up here, here's how bad it is. We'll have kids that will go, they'll get truancy letters, and we have to send those out.
Right.
And then the parents then have to go see the judge, and then the parents will file unruly charges on their kid. So then they just wash their hands, and it's like, so what do we do? It's nobody's fault.
That's the $1 million question. Okay, so if you have no hope, and our previous guest, Dan Leffingwell, who's a state superintendent in the years, again, if you have no hope, like I can't read this material, or I can't get out of the situation, then why would you care, right? That leads that we could have a whole nother topic on what's the answer. I don't know. What do you do with these kids? If they don't come to school, what do you do? And people say, well, put them in jail. Or how many people, you put thousands in jail? When they get out, they still want to go to school. It's a tough situation, I think, for that accountability of, we got to provide hope for kids, but there has to be some consequences. It's a balancing act. I don't think there's a cookie cutter approach that everybody should do this or that.
Right.
But you're in the trenches at an inner city metropolitan city, a big high school. I mean, so when you see this, what do you or your colleagues mean, how's that impact you?
Well, first of all, we have we got some bigger problems up here, especially this year. In the last probably 2 or 3 years, we've had a lot of tragedies at the high school and middle school as far as you know, kids committing suicide. And that's a whole nother issue that us teachers have to deal with, and we have to identify kids that need help. Um, it's I talk to other teachers, and I see them in the staff lounge, which I try to stay out of. But I will go in there once in a while, and some of these teachers, they're veteran teachers. They've been teaching longer than me. They just kind of throw their hands up and say, "What am I supposed to do?"
All
And
right, so describe a typical day for you.
a typical
Talk
day.
about, yeah, yeah, and the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, it's not all bad, but a typical day, uh, for you in an inner city high school.
So, Cleveland Heights, we have a little over 1,700 kids at the high school.
1,700.
Yeah, a little over 1,700. That's 9 through 12. So, I obviously park, come in through the back door, see some kids hanging around downstairs. Bell rings, kids start moving around, going to classes. I'll get a couple, "Hey, Mr. Thomas," they want to dap me up. And I get to my room, and my first period, I have no class, so I'm able to kind of sit down and make sure my game plan is ready for the day. Because I mean, obviously you lesson plan weeks before, but I just double check everything and make sure that my plan is on track. And then I have to have a backup plan in case I don't have enough kids. Because if I only have, let's say I'm supposed to have 30 kids and I only got 10, well, it's kind of hard to introduce something new when less than 50% are there, which happens often. So I always have to have backup plans ready, which are usually just reintroducing the lesson from the day before. Um, and then I got I co-teach second period, and once again, I told you earlier on that's hard because the gen ed teacher, his son tragically passed away, so I kind of had to take the lead role in that. um, and a lot of those kids look at me. I don't know if they realize I'm a teacher, and I got to remind them that I've been teaching since 1999. They look at me like an aide or a parapro. So that's one obstacle I have to get over, and remind the kids that I am a certified teacher. Because the kids they see that, they understand that if a substitute comes in, there is no respect, and the kids just do whatever they want. Where when the gen ed teachers in there, special ed teachers in there, there's more respect given. So, and I co-teach, and I have my pull-out class, which I love those kids to death. I mean, they try, but I don't. I really got to cut back on the algebra 1. I can't get too deep with my lesson plan with them. Just try to reach the surface and get some of the main topics out. And then it's just, you got your plan periods where I'm going to classroom, trying to find students, talk to them a little bit. Hey, you missed 3 or 4 days the last, 2 weeks. What's going on at home? Can I help you? Do you need to go talk to somebody? And so that's what I do during my plan periods, as well as working on IEPs and progress reports and ETRs, as I try to.
And you hit on so in your planning period, which is is your personal time to plan, but you're going and pulling kids out. You're looking for kids. Why?
Well, because a lot of kids won't. Some of them aren't real verbal. Um, to get help. And So that's where I come into play, where I see them at least once a week, and they feel comfortable talking to me, and it's just like, hey, what's going on? And I had an example about 3 or 4 weeks before break. I had one student whose their house caught on fire, and that's why they were out for an extended period. I had another student that the parents were moving, and so they needed someone to stay home and watch their siblings while the parents were packing up trucks and moving into a new home. And a lot of our kids won't tell us what's going on. So, I got to go and find them and figure out what's happening, and then try to redirect them to the right people to talk to. So that's,
But you do that because you care about the kids.
well,
That's
yeah,
that,
yeah,
that's not part of your job description, right?
right.
But
No, no, it's not. But
but it's
but
the right thing to do because you're in it for the right reasons and it's all about the kids. You alluded to subs because there's a shortage of teachers and they can't get subs as well, right? When someone calls off work, these districts and buildings are absorbing that internally. So it's more work for somebody else, right?
yeah,
And that is a frustration saying, look, I'm struggling to do my job here. Now I have to do somebody else's job. And you wear a lot of hats. You just said like, you're helping kids that you're dealing with death. You're dealing with, moving, you're dealing with, I gotta watch my siblings. I can't come to school. I gotta work. You understand, I'm sure you deal with gangs as well, right?
yes, a lot of gang activity.
I mean, that's a different level of when you're teaching Johnny and Joey, who's in a gang or gang affiliated, the hope that they have for the education process is out the window.
Right. And that's where the hard part sets in, is trying to when you first meet a kid, try to figure out what they're here for. Are they here to get an education? Are they here just to pass? What do they want to do in the future, 5 years, 10 years from now? But then you got that tricky part, what are you in a gang? And I don't even bring that up. But I will hear kids in the hallways as they're walking down the hallway talking about gangs, and usually I'll go straight to our janitors, and I'll talk to our janitors, or I'll talk to the security that we have in our building about a certain. They're the eyes and ears of the building. They hear more than I hear sometimes, so I'll need to go and ask them what's happening with this kid. What do you think? And of course, if they're a part of a gang, then that's something that has to be addressed. It's funny, when I was at Burn Union, the biggest problem we had was, kids eating in the classroom. And then I come to Cleveland Heights and I'm like, that's not an issue. Just make sure you have enough for me. Those problems are not big, but being up here, it's, there's more serious pressing issues. I mean, we've had kids bring weapons to school, and they're good kids, but they walk home and they're fearful, and so they're carrying a weapon when they walk home. And sometimes the gang activity is there, where kids are being stalked and hunted down when, as they're walking home, and they're doing it for their own safety. And I totally get it. I mean, I understand you want to be safe, but I just know this. I mean, there's times I wish I was back home where you are, um, in little town, teaching, but the animal up here is really difficult, just because, like you mentioned, there's just so many hats that you have to wear, and you really got to dig into your toolbox as a teacher, and it comes from experience on how to handle certain situations.
So, with this, what would motivate? What are some solutions? Whether it's small town, suburban, urban, metropolitan inner city, like where you're at as well. What would drive people to want to come educate? What would drive, what changes do we need to make to get more people that want to go in this profession? And take the money piece out of me, because that's the model, obviously, the 8 hour day. But what would make people want to come to the environment that not just where you're at, but everywhere? What's your thoughts on that?
It's I've had people ask me that, and right now we currently have openings at Heights High School. We can't get filled. We've already had teachers leave the building, just walk out and never come back. And these teachers have been there for 10, 15, 20 years. My first
Chase, why do you think they're walking out? Because every day there's somebody that's quitting the profession, and not at the end of the year, like leaving mid-year, beginning of the year. Why are those people leaving?
I think it's just because the years and years of frustration. Up here for some reason, and I'm going to be honest about this. It seems like if there's a problem in our district, they just hire somebody. They'll hire somebody for the district office, but they won't fix the problem, which is trying to get the right people in the school building dealing with the day-to-day issues. So,
But if there's a shortage, and
right.
there's a lot, how do you fill it?
Well, I mean, right now we got teachers covering classes on their plan period, which,
and that's everywhere. I mean, that's in every district, every building.
yep. And the thing is this, that's hard to do because I already got that time spent on reaching out to my students. So I can't cover those classes. But I've always said, you and I both know, and most educators know, we can't handle all the responsibility for these students. But for some reason we get placed, the blame is always placed on us. If the kid is reading on a third grade level, then we're getting blamed.
Well, that goes to the third reason of the bureaucracy of, well, I got the stats here. It is 68% fill of the state and federal bureaucracy is ruining education. That's why they get out, because I'm held to test scores, and I have all these other hats I got to wear. Right, this kid may not have eaten. He may be homeless. Yeah. He may be running from a gang. He may have to be the parent, because the parent works at night and he's taking care of the siblings.
Yep.
And you're doing all these things to help these kids, and at the same time, there's an academic rigor that all kids. This kid reads at the second grade level, but he's got to score proficient on this test.
Yeah, that's a lot what I deal with.
Yeah, everybody. It's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's things are placed on kids. I mean, you got single family homes, which is huge, where there's just one parent in the house. So, in my situation up here, it's usually mom. She's working 2 jobs. She's got, 2, 3, 4 kids. And I sympathize with that student. I had a kid last year. I love the kid to death. He's one of my favorite students. He's a wrestler. And, he was responsible for taking care of his sister who was in the middle school. And I remember having a meeting, and I just thought, this isn't right. That this kid is 15 years old. Let him be a kid. But in his situation, he had to be not only a son, but he had to be a dad to his sister. And mom, thrust that upon him. And, I don't, me personally, I don't think it's right, but mom's doing what she's trying to do.
Right.
To put food on the table.
How do we take that kid right there? This is a great example. Okay. And again, educators, we got to be solution based. Right. So we acknowledge there is a crisis of teacher shortage, and there's not all people going in this thing. So where this is going to be at in 10 years is, we're trying to find solutions. But how do you provide hope for this kid? And when I say hope, I'm saying it doesn't always have to be like this. You don't have to. You can be any. There's opportunity out there. But in this kid's world, like, I'm being the dad, parent trying to help hold this thing down. And at the same time, I'm not real interested in your algebra class because I got bigger priorities.
Right. And you know, with this one, with that one particular student, he's one of the kids that, you know, he'll see me first in the hallway and he'll come up to me and, you know, he'll dap me up. And I'll just ask him, you know,
Oh,
how's
let
it?
me see your dap. I want to see your dap.
Well, you know, he's, you know, give me,
Oh,
you know, fist bump, or he'll do,
hey,
you know, do this here, he'll do this
oh,
here,
all right,
you know. And you know, he's with his boys down the hallway, and he doesn't care because he and I have that relationship. And sometimes I'll pull him aside and we'll have a long conversation. I'll ask him how his mom's doing, how his sister's doing, and then we get talking about him and his situation, and how things are
So,
going
but
for him.
so how do you provide hope for that kid?
You know, it just positive reinforcements. You know, telling him, hey, you know, I check his grades. I don't even have him in class anymore, but I'll check his grades.
Okay, why?
Why?
Yeah,
Because he's still one of my kids, even though I don't teach
right.
him.
Because you care. And so when I think of the teacher shortage, we have to sell this, and obviously we have to tweak the model and the pay and things like that to encourage people, but we have to develop people that care about other human beings.
Right.
And if you go into education, you quickly find out if you don't care about other people, you won't last.
Right. You're out in a hurry.
I mean, because look, especially today, when you first started, you could get by just because it was a dictatorship. All the kids are in a line, sit down, shut up, do this, blah, blah, blah. And they did it, right? And you
Yep.
could just you could be a manager, not a teacher. I could just
Yep.
manage the room. All right. Today, with all the things these kids are bringing off the streets into your right from home, foster placements, you're in a locked unit. When they're bringing things that people can't really, if you don't care like you do, and go check on some kid that's not even your kid, you'll never last in education.
Right. It won't happen. And actually, you know, Todd, that kind of fuels the fire to make me want to keep teaching.
Yes.
I want to see this kid all the way through because I get them mostly when they're freshmen, and I want to see them walk across that stage and get that sheepskin. And you know, I don't take I'm not going to say it's because of me, but I do get gratification out of seeing a kid who struggled as a 15-year-old, and
Absolutely.
now they're an 18-year-old, and I'm like, they did it. I can't believe it. They made it through, and they did it, and
they did it because you played a role in it. There's a lots of people down in first, second grade that didn't quit on them, right?
right.
Every time this kid falls down, we pick him up, right?
Yep.
And that's a hard thing to do because in the process of doing this as a teacher today, you're wearing all these hats, you're getting cussed out, getting disrespected. You got parents going on social media blasting people. And if you don't remember your purpose, your why I'm here, why I'm doing this, people leave every day.
Yep.
So I think at districts and at the state level and the federal level, we have to reward people for caring and help them with their purpose and give some freedom to teachers to achieve their purpose with passions and platforms they can share with kids.
You know, you're exactly right. And as I'm sitting here, I kind of get a little ramped up because we go back to school on Monday, and I am excited to get back and see my kids and see all the students. But you just know, up here, kids having 2 weeks off. I know a lot of these kids that I want to see, I'm not going to see. They're not going to be there. They're going to be locked up, or we just had another incident happen 2 days ago with a high school student tragically passing away by a shooting. And I mean, you get jazzed up, and that's what you do, Todd. You know how to manage people and get them excited and bring out that passion. I love it. That's one of the things I respect about you. But then there's that other side where, what am I going into on Monday? What am I walking into? And how am I going to deal with this, and how am I going to deal with that?
So when we talk about the struggles, teachers everywhere. I mean, their days are overwhelmed. They're taking care of somebody else's babies, and they get accosted, they get emails. And let's be honest, in education, when the phone rings or an email comes, it's one of two things: somebody needs something, or they're here to complain. No one's calling to say thank you.
And,
Right?
I'm glad you said that, because my first point of business is reaching out to all the kids on my caseload, reaching out to parents, and then I got about 160 kids throughout the course of a day, 180 kids. I reach out to their parents once a week, and I try to get ahead of that battle and get them on my side, because a lot of our kids, when they go home, they won't tell the entire truth or the entire story, where I know when that kid goes home, mom already knows what happened that day, but I got to contact that parent when their kid did something well, when they did
So
something right. So a lot of teachers, they will write referrals for kids who were doing something bad, but up here we have a positive referral, and then there's a reward system for that. So I'll write up kids for saying, hey, so and so helped somebody pick up their books, they dropped them in the hallway, or they took a friend and got him out of a fight, removed them from the situation before the fight got started. And I see that, and I'll obviously I got to contact administration about what happened, but then I try to write something positive about that student, and then I'll try to get a hold of the parent and say, hey, your son or daughter did a great thing today. They got one of their friends out of trouble. You should appreciate that. And I found out that I get more responses from parents when I do let them know something positive about their child, as opposed to always something negative. Because like you said, parents, they get emails, they get phone calls. They already know the phone number. They see it on their caller ID. And
hey, I'm not answering this.
Yeah, they're
They're
just
going
not
to tell
going
me
to
I
answer the
got
phone.
to. We got to hear that they think that I'm going to have to come pick up my kid. He's not coming home.
Yeah,
Leave him in. But
yeah. So you just you got to be able to balance that too.
All these things we're talking about, Chase, is if comes down to, if we're going to address the teacher shortage, why? Why do we have a teacher shortage? Why should somebody stay in education? Why are we trying to recruit certain type of people to get an education? Why would you ever do it? What's your why? What's your purpose every day when you walk in that building? What's your why?
My why.
Why do you do it? Why do you teach?
Yep. I ask myself that every single day, and it comes back to, why do I teach? It's because I know somebody needs me. Out of 1,800 kids, there may be only one, but that kid needs me.
Absolutely.
And I got to be there for that kid. And you want to reach all 1,700. You want to be able to reach, but it's impossible. You can't do it. But I guarantee you, there's one out of 1,700 that need me in that building. They need me in that classroom to help them be successful. And if you're a teacher, whatever their motivation is their motivation. But me personally, you just got to put all the bad stuff aside, and you just got to say, you know what? I got to show up, because there's one student that's expecting me to be there. There's one student expecting me to be on my A game, and they may not tell me. They're not, more than likely, they're not going to tell me, hey, Mr. Thomas, I need you here. But they expect me to be there, and they expect me to help them. And that's the why.
That's it. And that I wish I could bottle that. That's beautiful. And the why of, so they need you. This is about somebody else. And if we're going to keep people in education and we're going to entice people to come to education, it's that. And through it all though, but it's educators, and again, this is different. They go through a lot, wear a lot of hats. It's got to be unconditional. Okay. And
Yeah.
it's just like
Yep.
with my own children. Like they do dumb things like anybody else, and I get frustrated, but the love's unconditional. There's consequences, right?
Right.
But I still love them. Someone's got to love these kids unconditionally. And some of the, we have a saying that the most unloving kids ask for love in the most unloving ways.
Yes. Yes. You're right.
And they need hope.
Yes. I see kids that will act up, and I'll pull them aside, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? And they're like, well, you know what? You haven't been here in 2 days. And I said, well, I told you kids I was proctoring OSTs. I told you I was in the building. I told you where I'm located if you need to come find me. Well, I don't have time to come find you. I got to get to my classes. I can't be late. And so
But teachers matter.
yeah, I mean,
Teachers matter.
yes,
And
believe me, it shocked me because I'm like, this kid is supposed to be, hardcore, and he's telling me he's acting up because I'm not there.
absolutely. I mean,
It's a shock.
what educators don't understand is when you go into education and you quit on kids, you're quitting on people that need you. They need you. It's bigger than this. It's bigger than me and you. It's bigger than our problems. It's bigger than our frustrations. And I do think that that's, as we move forward, is we have to ask why and how. How do we get people in this education? But the why is, do you want to make a difference? Do you want to leave a legacy? And you talk about Christmas break and this is Friday. On Monday, students are coming back, right? Well, the at-risk youth that I serve and you serve, that's the hardest transition. 2 weeks, environments, a lot of times, there aren't real positive. It's been some toxic drama they've been exposed to, and they didn't quite have the holiday season and Christmases that most people had. And you open the door like, hey, Johnny and Susie, and Johnny and Susie's been a train wreck for 2 weeks, and they can care less about what you taught, but yet the state says, you got to get your testing. Testing's coming here in March. They better perform well. Your name's attached to this. And you got superintendents and principals and curriculum teams saying, we got to do this data, which is okay, great. But ultimately what you said, Chase, is you show up every day because someone needs you, and helping kids succeed. And where I think we're lost in education is the definition of success is really individual. For some kids, it should, like, succeeding on a reading test is irrelevant to some kids, but that kid becomes a productive citizen that wants to learn, that wants to get out of small town USA. They want to get out of inner city Cleveland, right? That's way bigger than the algebra class or the reading score. And, we talk about your why every day. You get up every day, there's a reason. And I commend you and all educators for that, because it's not easy. I mean, you get cussed out, you get disrespect, you get nasty emails from parents, you get kids that won't even try, and I tell people, I said, imagine trying to go on a date with somebody in the first date, and they were on their phone the whole time and never even looked up and didn't respond. How engaged would you be in that date, right?
Yeah.
So imagine I spent all weekend, I'm all excited, I come to class, hey, here we go, let's go. I'm sleeping, and maybe they may have been slept in 3 days, right? And this kid's just, and they have no interest in what you're trying to help them yet, right? So that's the whole dilemma for people out that aren't in education, and teachers this, teachers that. There's real frustrations and issues, but
well, I'll tell you this: come Monday, I will have about 20 boxes of Pop-Tarts. My kids love those because I don't know when the last time it was they actually ate. So usually that first day back from break, and even when we have spring break, I make sure I got enough food in my classroom for kids, because like you said, they go a week, they go 2 weeks, You don't know what you're getting when they come back. Some kids have other priorities. They got to do this, they got to do that. There was
And
no
and and, and you got to prepare them for the end of course exam, but then you
yeah,
finish
yeah,
and they say, Mr. Thomas, you can stick that EOC where the sun don't shine, brother. I
yep,
don't care about
yep, exactly. And you're 100% correct. And that's the part that's so difficult, is trying to get them engaged in the curriculum and engaged in the, and that's why the lesson planning is huge. You got to get that hook to get them interested into that lesson plan. But the very next day that kid could say, who gives two craps? My dad just got locked up for another 5 years, or my mom just lost her job. I don't care. I got to go get a job now.
it. Right.
So yeah, you're right. End of course exam, OSTs. A lot of those kids are like, I don't care. That it doesn't matter to me. I got bigger fish to fry. And some teachers get frustrated with that and they try to force the issue. And I'm like, you can't force it. You gotta massage it a little bit.
But people will never ever forget or regret caring. And here's what I do know about students, young people today. Two things. And I said this when I coached high school and even college. I've used to tell our coaches that. I do it now with our principals. I do it with our teachers in meetings. Two things. Kids will always, 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 they'll remember and never forget for two things. One, did you care about this person as a human being? As a person, not as a student, not as a player, just as a person. And number two, what did you stand for? Did you have morals and values and integrity? Or, they'll never forget that. And I used to laugh when I was coaching college. I'd say, look, we're going to run these guys someday and they're going to be middle-aged men. And when we see them, we're going to pass them. And they're either going to come up and give us a hug or keep right on walking. And it's not going to have anything to do with because we won or lost games. Did they care about me as a person? And what did we stand for? Did we stand for the right things?
It's funny you said that you said you're going to cross paths, right? And I remember Gene Ford was talking to my father, and he goes, Gene Ford told my father, he said, I taught Gino and Dustin this one lesson. There's people climbing up that ladder, then those same people are climbing down that ladder. When you climb up that ladder, you're going to pass a lot of people that are coming down. Don't be disrespectful, but remember what that person did. What did they stand for? And you may learn something, because your paths are going to cross sooner or later. It's just going to happen. So, these students, hopefully they take notice of that. The problem I have is my kids are freshmen, so they're still they don't see the big picture. They don't see it yet until their junior year. But even then, we do certain things up here at the high school where the students will do appreciation day for teachers, and that's when you see where you actually reach the student. You reached out to them, and that's not why we do this, but you do get that level of respect there. I don't know about you, the disrespect, it's I know they're not disrespecting me, they're disrespecting something in their own lives. It's not me that they're upset with, it's something else that's happening. So as a teacher, you got to put that disrespect aside and say, look, this kid needs help.
And how do I help this person
Yeah.
manage all and have coping skills? Because if they don't have them as adults, bad things happen, right? So
Yep.
let me ask you, Chase, you've been doing this a long time. What's been the biggest change in education?
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a good one. To be honest with you, I'd have to say accountability and responsibility. No one's held accountable. Everybody points fingers. and the responsibility. Nobody wants to take responsibility for their own actions. When I started teaching back in '99, I remember I had a mentor teacher, and she said, "What's the difference?" Because obviously I went to a private Catholic high school. She goes, "What's the difference between that school and this public school?" And I told her that. And I feel it hasn't really changed that much. That's still the big difference, is the accountability, responsibility. Is people want to point fingers and they want to blame others for their lack of success, instead of looking in the mirror and owning their failures and then working on that. We live in a world where everybody wants a quick fix. You go to the drive-through at McDonald's, you want your food right now. You don't want to be waiting 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And it's the same thing with education. Kids are like, I want that grade now. I want this right now. Well, I mean, you got to be patient a little bit, but did you do your work the last 2 weeks? You didn't do anything. So, the accountability and responsibility, I think, is the two biggest things in education right now. And it's not just the students, it's the teachers also. The teachers also have to hold themselves accountable. The teachers have to hold themselves responsible for what's going on in that classroom and in that building.
So let me ask you this. So, teachers are leaving every day, as you said, they're quitting in the middle of the year. There's openings, like you said, even in your district now. We're halfway through the year and there's still not filled. What's solutions? I mean, and the reason it's important from you and the other guests on the show is from people in the trenches, not some legislator, not somebody, like people in the trenches, to have a solution of how do we address this teacher shortage? How do we put a band-aid on? How do we change gears and go that way? How do we recruit people? What's a solution or a thought from your standpoint?
Well, first of all, if I knew 100%, I'd be a millionaire, because I'd write a book and it would be the bestseller. But yet
You should write a book.
I have not seen that book out there. We have a person in our district that's a community liaison person that reaches out to families, and they're the kind of go-to person between the families and the teachers in the district. I think we got to figure out what path is this student on, and what's the best situation for that student to help them to be successful. I think there needs to be some changes at the state level as far as what the expectations are, because some of our students we know are not going to go to college. They are going to go into the trades, and they're going to be a laborer, and that's what they want to do. That's what their parents did. But here we are, we keep pushing these tests on these kids, and they're not learning any real life skills. And so we try to get our kids up here. We try to get them to be credit proficient by their junior year, so they can get into one of our tech programs, which I think is great for our students. It gives them hope, where when they graduate, they got a skill. And I think we got to continue to push that around the state. Obviously, there's issues there because of state funding or federal funding in the districts, and you can't have tech programs or anything like that because your budget costs. But I think everybody needs to come together and figure out the solution as far as how can we re-engage kids, and how can we get teachers to come back, or how can we get teachers to come back? I mean, that's just a tough question.
But you hit on, like, the model that we talked about this earlier with Dan Leffingwell, who was the state superintendent of the year.
Oh, you had Dan on?
Yeah, Dan.
Oh man.
Yeah, everybody loves Dan, right?
What's he doing now?
He's now at Washington State. He's at the higher level of education. He's at the highest level. This guy's done it all. But
I remember him from a basketball camp down at Marietta.
Yeah. He said that's why he got out of coaching, guys like you.
Yeah, probably.
But he touched on something. The model is archaic. It was built during the Industrial Revolution. 8 hours a day daycare, people had to go work. And that was a time when men and women both worked, and the factories was booming. And we've got to change the way we think and how we service kids, how we do education. It's just like having to renew your license and the pay, like you said, other countries, and the whole model needs shifted.
Yes.
And if they're not going to do that at a federal and state level, then public education is going to crumble at some point. There will
Right.
no. And so, one of the next questions I have for you is, if things don't change, what do you think in this teacher shortage increase? What do you think? How do you see the future of education?
Wow, I see a lot of it's going to be online.
Online.
You're going to be
You're gonna see
online schooling.
You're going to see AI. They're going to put kids in the gym on a computer and AI, and that's what's going to happen.
Yep, you're going to have right, like right now, we can only have so many kids in our classroom, and they're pretty much loaded up as it is right now because of the teacher shortage. But there's nothing wrong with putting kids, 80, 90 kids in the gym, having them log on, and you have one teacher teaching a lesson. I mean, that's
the scary. That's the scary part where it's like I'm hoping that this podcast reaches people and they listen to people in the trenches like yourself. And I've got some diverse people. I've got Small Town USA. I got you in inner city Cleveland, and each pod. I want them to understand that this is not a bitch session. This isn't. This is here's this as educators. We're solution people, right? Find solutions.
Yep.
We have an issue. We know we have an issue. We got to come up with solutions and do things differently. Or if we keep banging our head off that wall's not moving.
The thing is this, Todd, that my question I have is, when are we going to implement changes? Because it seems like everybody wants to point the finger at the district level and the state level. Everybody wants to point the finger and say, well, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. But yet there's no solutions. Nobody acts.
Well, that's what we're coming up. I mean, obviously, to renew your license every so many years for $280 is a crock.
Yeah.
To take continuing ed,
Yep.
We're going to have to start getting kids. I think that one of my solutions is, why would I have to go to a university to get a degree in education? Why wouldn't districts hire people and for 6-7 years train and pay them money to train them? Right? Just like student teaching, you student teach with somebody else and that teacher signs off on whether or not you can be a teacher or not.
Yeah.
The university. So
the baby boomers did that. The baby boomers had that situation where there was a teacher shortage, and the school districts just said, hey, if you're enrolled in the college classes, we'll hire you as a full-time teacher, but you got to keep working on your education.
And the state's going to have to create some flexibility with that.
Right.
And each district's unique. So each district, and you have to have something to recruit people. The other thing is, and I'm in education, right? And I love kids. I don't love school. And but I tell kids, why would you go to college if you don't come out there with something that comes with a license? A teacher, an attorney, a doctor, a pharmacist, blah, 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 right? Because in today, you can make more money without a degree. There was a time if you didn't have a degree, you couldn't make any money. Okay.
Right.
But let's just say I wanted to be in banking. If I was local bankers, I would say, why don't we go and recruit the top 10% of kids in all the area high schools, and let's bring them in. We'll start them out as a teller, and then we'll put them in commercial lending and residential lending, and then they'll be in branch management, and they'll do in repo. And in a 10-year plan by 28, that's who will be my branch managers or our new senior vice presidents. We've built our own. It's like developing players, right? You take these kids and you develop them, and all of a sudden, this kid's been in my program, and all of a sudden he's my captain, he's my all-state player, but he's been in my program for 10 years. Yep. So I think we have to be creative in how we develop people and outside the box. That's going to require some people at the state and federal levels to give some leniency and change the model that we currently have
What
right now.
what in your position, Todd, as a superintendent, you know, you're in meetings with people higher up. Does is anybody offering any solutions, or is this just a common theme? You know, throw your hands up. What am I supposed to do here? You know, let's try this or try that.
Great question. The problem is, right now in Ohio, we're in Ohio. The Ohio Department of Education has now changed. They've shifted. There's no longer that, and it's, the workforce development. You also have state board members that don't stick around. So a lot of people that work on the solutions, you get new people. We went through state superintendents here pretty at a high rate. Interims, the person's going interim, this. So there's no real constant person and group of people that lead the change, I guess. Same way you have legislators, they come and go, you get new people at different levels. And so I think that plays into it in effect. But yes, there are people working solutions. And again, 86% of people are happy with public education day. So, a lot of times.
What percentage?
86. Leffingwell shared with us that 86% of people are happy with education today, and then being parents and people in a poll. So, it's not all negative. The news chooses to show a lot of negativity, and there are issues that we're dealing with. But the bottom line is people get an education for a why. They want to impact people's lives. People like you that have done that. If you could go back, if you could change one thing in education, what's the one thing you would change? You get anything you can change. You can wave a wand and change it.
I would like to see well, this it kind of comes twofold, because I do it in my classroom. Is I pair kids up ability wise. No matter what, I have a 15-year-old, I may have a 16-year-old, but they're both, let's say, on a third grade level. Well, here's your curriculum. This is what I got to teach. This is differentiation. Or I will pair up somebody who's higher with somebody who's lower, so we get that peer-to-peer interaction. I think in today's world with teachers, some teachers are still stuck in that one model fits all. And the wand that I would use my wand to work more on the differentiation and pairing kids up, and get out of the old school where the teacher stands in front of the classroom, teaches the lesson and just hands out worksheets.
Well, it comes back to changing the model of how we do things, how we deliver things, including our expectations of ourselves as adults and kids. If you could go back in time, Chase, would you still choose to be a teacher?
Definitely. There's, I sometimes I'll joke with some people and I'll say, if there was another job that, paid me as much as I get paid now, I would leave in a heartbeat. And I say that because I overemphasize how troubling it is to be a teacher. And these people will agree with me. And I'm like, you don't understand what I meant. That I can leave my job anytime I want, and I can go get another job. But it's not necessarily about it's not about the money. I'm doing it. I still have my job because I care about my students. I care about my parents. And so a lot of times that stuff, you'll hear teachers talk, water cooler talk stuff. Right. But at the end of the day, we're still, if that's the calling, that's the calling. I can't see myself doing anything else and being happy at all. That's
the key. So you found your why, you found your purpose in life. That's what education needs to be. We need to help kids find their purpose in life. And it's not necessarily what you do, it's why you do it. You can make $1 million we can pay you $10 million a year and give you a job that you're completely miserable at and you hate. I mean, when you see it every day, it's about your why. And there's great teachers like you, Chase, that sacrifice everything for their why. Like you said, because there's that one kid that needs you, and they need you to be there. They need you to show up. They need you not to miss work.
Yep.
Because you might be that one constant, that one glimmer of hope a day that somebody cares about and even takes the time to ask me, how are you?
Yeah, I have a question. Are you guys are you coming across that issue? Because I've talked to some teachers in our district, and teachers are taking days off left and right. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, I just need a mental day. I need a break. And
It's across the country because, again, where educators are dealing with so much every day of what these kids are bringing in, right? And you're asked to, like Linda said earlier, she teaches second grade, kids got a nosebleed. She's got to help this kid tie his shoe. The mom's working third shift, so she has to help get to the babysitter. You're doing all these other stuff, and you do get burnt out. You get overwhelmed. And a lot of times with the trauma that, especially where you see, and I've taught ED, I've taught in unit, where it's wild days. And if people saw real life, they'd be like, man, I don't know how you do that, right? But so I think there's overwhelming, people need a break and they need to catch themselves. But a lot of it is why are you doing it? Right? If you know your why, then regardless of all the adversity and circumstances, you find a way to get through it, right?
yeah, I mean, hey, Todd, life is a grind in itself. Let's say you and I were not working. You get up every day. What's my purpose for today? My purpose for today is to be better than what I was yesterday.
Amen.
But it's not going to be handed to you. It's a grind. No matter what job you go into, it's the same thing. I got to be better today than I was yesterday, but it's not going to be handed to me. It may be a grind. I mean, there's days I've come home from work, and I've told my wife, I said I should get my paycheck back today because I didn't earn it. I didn't bring it today. I didn't earn my money, and I feel bad. I feel like I stole money because I didn't bring my A game. I wasn't ready for it, and that's hard to deal with.
Well, again, teachers, educators, including secretaries, custodians, everyone. There's a lot, and social media's made it worse. People, they go in and it's a platform to complain, whatever. But I do think, Chase, when you talk about the mental health days, the model, it comes back to how we do things. I think 4-day work weeks and year-round schooling is important. I think changing days, asking kids to sit there for 8 hours. I think they don't have to break. People are working smarter; they're working less. And I'm as old school as you are. I was raised the way you were raised. Like you go to work if you're lose both your legs, crawl, but you go to work, right?
Yep.
I with that though, I think I've had to adapt that people are working smarter. Banking, you online bank, you don't need to go to the bank. You can do everything on your app, right? You have my charts from my doctor. You can do Zoom with you don't have to go. I think we have to look at the model, and less is better. People are working from home. People are working remotely. People are working 3 days a week. And you can say, well, that's lazy, it's this and that. But I think we have to change the model because time is the most covered resource in the world. It's the one thing we can never have enough of. Time. We just don't have enough time. And it's as we get older, we want more time with our loved ones. We want more time to do our job. We want more time to work out. We want more time for this. We want more time with this student. We want more time to do career readiness. We want time. And if we don't tweak the model that we're doing, we're never going to be able to create more time for people to be balanced and healthy, including students and families and us. referred to the microwaves as we were so far out of control. Go, 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 go. And that's me. I'm not gonna lie. I get up at 4 a.m. working this, go all day, all night, boom, kids, work, da 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 da. My biggest fear is when, if I do retire, what will I do? Because I gotta go. I have to have a why. But I think with what you're saying with the mental health stuff, we need to look at that model, because the life happens, adversity comes to all of us. You can go on a biblical thing. It tells you God's going to bring adversity to all of us, and it's going to continue. It doesn't just stop. It's not like, oh, I went through some bad times, and that'll be the last bad time I ever had, right? And God doesn't send you a text and say, hey, Chase, guess what? Next Tuesday, some bad stuff. Make sure you're ready, right? So, but I think knowing that and investing in staff wellness, investing time for some mental health days for people, team bonding. But things happen. You alluded to your co-teacher you're working with going through some stuff. Chase, I'm going to touch on something that's really emotional, I'm sure, for you. You lost a child, and yesterday was that anniversary. And we talked a little bit before it came on. Nobody can relate if they've never lost. I won't pretend to. You show up every day, but every day you're bringing something that impacts your day, that
Right.
loss, that pain, right? And if we don't tweak the model for people, and we don't invest in our people that are leading these kids, because if you and I aren't well, we can't serve we're no use to any child.
Well, when you talk about investing your time and you was talking about updating the model, with today's technology, it's there.
It is there.
And we're not utilizing it.
We're still stuck back in 1920.
Yeah. I mean, I try to, I can't get my students off their cell phones. So you know what? I got to find a way to make that cell phone useful in that classroom. How can I do that?
Smarter. That's what I'm saying. You can, the old school resist that. These kids don't need these daggone phones, blah, blah, blah. That's the world they live in. You're not going to win that battle.
Yep. Never going to win it.
And like Leffingwell said, we're preparing kids for jobs that don't even exist, things that you and I know nothing about.
Yep.
So we have to change the model. And I think that if you do that, we're going to get more people in. I think, again, it's like coaching. If we had a bad season, we have to analyze and measure why. It's not pointing fingers. What are some factors that played into this? What do we got to do next year so we don't go 0-10 again?
Right.
Right?
And that's, when we get evaluated, when, you're an administrator, you evaluate teachers, it's, one of the questions is, how do you know if you were effective in your lesson planning? And a lot of it comes down to reflection when I'm finished. How did I rate myself? What could I have done differently in that lesson plan? And, you hit on it right there with coaching, hey, at the end of the season or game, how do I get to the point where I don't go 0-10 again?
If you look at the data and say, well, boy, we're awful on third down. Okay, so then what do we have to do on first down to be better? And second down, what are we doing on third down? Well, you have to, I mean, and you hit on being the best version of yourself every day. I want to be better today than I was yesterday, right? Better tomorrow than I am today. That requires us to look at what matters.
Yeah.
What in education, what matters? Why is this kid not coming to school? Why is this kid not engaged? Okay, and this kid's at 17 years old, he's reached the third grade level. Does his disability prevent him from ever getting that level? And sometimes it's true. And I know educators don't want to hear that, but I use this. I use my basketball background, right? If the test score was that everybody has to be able to get the rim to graduate, right? A lot of people wouldn't graduate. Now, everybody could increase their vertical leap of where they're at. It only might be this much, it might be an inch. But some people you can train for forever. They're never going to touch the rim.
Right.
So we have to measure what matters the most. And what's the most for this kid? What's he want to be? What have we exposed this kid to give him that hope? That's the model I think we got to change. That's the model that people want to be part of that. when you think about being creative and doing things differently and impacting kids' lives, I think you're going to recruit people that want to be there. When you say, I got to go do all this BS, I got to renew my license, I got to take classes, I got all this stuff, I got to cover somebody else's class, I got to end the course exam, and they post everything. People say, I don't need that.
Yeah.
I
And that,
need
you know, I'm sure you probably hear it within your guys' walls. You know, we have professional development at Cleveland Heights. And it's like, why am I going through this training again? I don't need this. Here's what I need. How do I write better progress reports? That's the training I need. But we keep regurgitating the same message, and things aren't changing. And you get caught in that cycle, and the districts keep feeding us this information. And a lot of teachers that I've talked to are like, we're doing this again. Why are we doing this again? This is not helping us at all as teachers. Here's what we need. And, you know, I don't know who makes the decisions, but, you know, we get a survey after each professional development. And the last question is usually, what would you like to see for the next professional development? And I got a feeling a lot of teachers are writing stuff in that the district has never even thought of. Such as, you know, 2019 was the last time we had any CPI training dealing with conflict, crisis situations.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I still got my card, but that's the last time we had any training. So these teachers they're forgetting how to, or they were never taught, how do I deal with the crisis when a kid is in serious trouble? How do I? Instead, our district just rolls out the same thing they did the year before, and it's like that's not what we need. I would like our, you know, I don't know about your situation or anybody else's situation, but, you know, the district needs to, especially in my situation, our district needs to start listening to the teachers and what they need. I mean, Todd, it's so bad. We pulled our best math teacher and put that lady in the district office and had no replacement for her. And the replacement was me and a full-time sub. And I'm like,
that's real. I mean, that's everywhere. You
yeah.
can't find.
And,
I mean,
yeah,
you can find a body, but
yep,
you cannot replace the person. And
right. That's just it. You can find a body, but you I mean, that student's going to just get crapped on at the end of the day.
but that's the crisis. That's what people don't realize. This is happening, and it's only going to get worse unless we change the model and have some things, and hopefully people listen to people in the trenches. But again, solutions. This is it's how do we make things better, right? We want to be better
Well,
today, tomorrow.
my question is this: I've always wondered this: the people that are making the decisions down in Columbus, when's the last time those people have been in a classroom? When you know, and I look at things geographically where, well, let's go up to Northeast Ohio and see if what we're telling our districts to do is working. So they'll come to Northeast Ohio and they'll go to Solon. It'll be like, oh, it's working there. That's good. Yeah, no. You didn't come to Cleveland Heights. You didn't go to East Cleveland because it's not working, you know? So
Again, Chase, I think there's got to be some standards. I mean, we talked a little bit yesterday about how and why the political entities got involved in education, right? Because there has to be some standards and there has to be some accountability, and we got to want accountability. But I do believe that it's got to be personalized. Your situation in Cleveland Heights is different than Solon. Doesn't mean that you can't but we ask schools to be a jack of all trades and a master of none.
right.
And the master is, everyone's just trying to master is, I want to provide hope and experiences and opportunities to help these kids grow. That's why they call it growing up. And we want them to grow, and I want them to look back and say, I've become a productive citizen because a lot of people played a role in this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you can't paint it with a broad brush, because every
uh,
situation is different, and you have to adapt. And I always say adapt and overcome. And it's it once again, it's a grind. I mean, I respect what you do, because I know deep down inside, the position you're in. I know how much you love teaching, and now you're the superintendent, and you got to fill a different role, but your passion there from day one when you first start teaching. I mean, you and I took those grad courses through, was it Mary Grove, together, I think. And I think that's the first time. I don't know, I think that was probably the first time you got teaching, but your passion is still there.
well, again, you got to go back to your why, right?
Yeah, and I don't think there's enough people like you out there that's in the position you're in that still has that passion.
Oh,
Uh,
they're out there. I think when we talk about solutions, is helping people find their why. Why are you walking in this door every day, and what's your identity when you walk in this door? Who are Superman he was Clark Kent, and then he went to the telephone booth and then became a superhero, right? When you walk in that building, who are you that day? What's your identity? What's your identity for those people? And I push that with amongst our district. I've got great people, but we do a lot of that from a culture standpoint. Who are we for these kids? What's our
yep.
identity? What's our why? Chase, tell me one person, or you can give me 1 to 2 people that in education impact your life for the better.
Oh, um, the first person I'd probably say is well, it's a combination of two people, uh, Coach Rock and Coach Parks, both for pretty much the same reason. Um, they taught me about accountability and responsibility, handling, taking care of your family, um, doing the grind. You may not like this, but you got to do this, you got to do that. There was another lady, she just retired a couple years ago from John Glenn. I believe it was Mrs. Shepherd. She was my 5th grade teacher at St. Nicholas. She taught math, and she did not like me at all, and I did not like her at all. But she got through to me, and a lot of things changed after that. It reaffirmed what I wanted to do and what I wanted to become. And I'll never forget that lady. Obviously, there's been on the road, but Coach Parks and Coach Rock are one and the same when it comes to influences. And then that 5th grade teacher, she was something special. I know that.
I want, in closing, Chase, give me one of the best moments you've had as a teacher.
I was at Mount Gilead, and I was teaching special ed in the classroom, and I had a student that was a senior, and they were in trouble of possibly not graduating. So I pulled that kid aside, and I obviously had my talk with them and stuff. And they're like, Mr. Thomas, I'm failing this class and that class, and I'm not going to graduate. And where I live across the street in this trailer, and mom, and I got 3 sisters, and none of my family has ever graduated. And I said, well, I'll make you this promise. I said, I've never gone to a graduation before besides my own. I said, the day you graduate, I'll be on the other side of that stage waiting for you. And that kind of got the kid a little bit ramped up, I think. And that was back in 2005. And at the time I told my, it was my second wife, I said, I gotta go to Mount Gilead this weekend. And she said, what for? And I said, well, the kid's going to graduate. Now, I had already left, and it took him an extra year. So he actually was in high school. He was 19 when he graduated. But I went to that graduation, and I saw him walk across the stage, and that was so gratifying. It's almost like that kid gave me more than I ever gave him. Because I don't know what I did, but I know what he did for me that day is, he persevered and went that extra year instead of signing out and quitting.
So
He graduated.
that amazing moment, again, that's not part of your job description. This is what we do in education, right? But I'm going to leave you with this as we wrap up the first ever That Talk with Todd podcast. I call it fill the bucket and empty the bucket. Every day we wake up, God fills our buckets with the talents and gifts we have, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, when we lay our head on the pillow, it is our responsibility and accountability. You're talking about accountability to make sure we empty that bucket. We've given everything we possibly that God's given us to the best of our ability for the people that we serve.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?